first I want to call here is Jose, who hosted a session on data ownership or data control. And one of the things I picked up in that discussion was that you as a citizen have your data, at least in the Netherlands, in over 800 sources. And it's about copies of copies of copies of data. So please, Jose, can you come up and tell us what came out of your session?
I have to think back because we had a very interesting other discussion just about now. But
flip over here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we started with the discussion that at the moment it's a little bit weird because all your data is in sort of my environments with companies, organizations, and there's a sort of contract laying beneath it, but it's a one-sided contract basically, because if you want to have access to your data, you can't really access it yourself. So we came to the conclusion that having, what does it mean? First we discussed what is data. So we thought data is something that says something about you. And do you need to own it? Or is it really about control? And we thought in the end it's about control, because in a digital world, ownership is maybe difficult. And we understood that Stibbe did some research on that, and data ownership is difficult because it's not something tangible, but it says something about the state of you at a certain moment. So in the end, we said that it's really about having control over your data. And then we discussed how you would have ultimate control. And the bigger part of us agreed that having control over your data means that you need to have the originals of your data under your premises. Koen was a little bit hesitant about it, but moving towards the idea that even originals should be under your control. And it's then about who you grant access to your data, for what service, for what period. And that's the main contract that you're having then with an organization, who you grant access to that information. And preferably, having such a contract is really mutual. So it's not about that organization saying, okay, if you don't disclose that, then we don't have a deal. Preferably, it's a mutual contract and discussion. And in the end, if you really if you keep the control, you should also be able to revoke that access to your data.
Thank you. I think there's two terms here that really strike me. One is agreement, mutual agreements, which will be very hard. And the other one is originals, which in a digital world, well. Then we had a session PKI for everyone. And one of the things I picked up there was it sort of seemed to be about a standoff between, do we need PKI or do we need wallets? And PKI is not popular. It used to be very expensive. It has a bad reputation. And I noticed that Bharadwaj, who had to leave, unfortunately made a really complicated scheme drawing about it. So Papa, will you please tell us what conclusion you came to? Oh, careful.
Yes, it was that PKI, most of the people, they think it's very old-fashioned. Yes, the first PKI certificate is from 1985, and since then there was no trouble at all with PKI. So in principle, it's a very good system, and a proven system. And the idea is to give everybody a PKI certificate. And the way you have to do it, why shouldn't you do it? Because it's so, the EU, they ask a high level of identification. And a high level of identification, one thing is that you have to prove that it's you. And with a PKI certificate, yes, you have to prove that it's you through your passport. Yes, and the identification in the system that we worked out is that the identification is done by the government. So the government is doing the identification. And nowadays it's so that you can do that also remote, and remote in the identification is now certificate, has a certificate at this moment, so it's proven. And so the government will prove your identification. And with the proof of the identification, they send that to the certificate supplier. So based on that, the certificate supplier can give you a PKI certificate. And on your smartphone, from your smartphone, you can enable your certificate. And through a register of attributes, you can, through an attribute, you can log in with the government websites and also with the private websites. At the government websites in Holland, they need BSN, but at the moment that you log in for the certificate, you provide all your personal items on the level of my overheid. Yeah, there you have a file and you put everything there. So there you put in your total address, your dates of birth, and your BSN. And when you now go to log in at a government body, then from there they take automatically the BSN from the level of the mine overheid. So no trouble with BSN anymore. And when you want to log in with another entity, a website or something like that, you do that through an attribute from an attribute register. And that attribute register also, they will collect the money that the one that you are logged in, yes, has to pay for. Because they have no trouble with GDPR now, because you are taking all the risk from them, yes, to you. So you are paid for it, because it's a win-win situation. So it's not that the private sector, yes, has to pay more than normally. No, they have to pay less, because normally also the banks, they have to pay a lot of money, yes, to protect all the GDPR items and so on. That's in principle the way we discuss.
So it's PKI second level then. Okay. I also feel you're proposing a whole new set of free IDs too. Okay, well, PKI is not that yet. Great. Next topic was, what is a wallet? Did we come to any conclusions on that? John Eric? Because I notice, there's payment wallets and there's identity wallets and there's organizational wallets, and when I ran into you guys, you were talking about smart wallets or even intelligent wallets. So you added new categories there. And then someone came up with a question, but this means nothing to me as an end user. Did you solve the case of what is a wallet?
Yes, of course we didn't. No, it's a difficult challenge because we keep discussing this and we mean different things. And we touched on wallet, and the differences. Starting with the end, when we touched on, why are we doing all of this, which is of course an important question before starting trying to solve a problem, solving what's the problem we're trying to solve. It's about reducing fraud. It's about simplicity for the user, hopefully. And it's to give the user control, which is a typical argument. So we want to do this to make life simpler for the user. That's the whole idea. And we cannot expect the users to understand what's going on there. User is in control. There will probably be multiple wallets. Wallet as a container holding information, but also some smartness connected to that wallet in some way or another, whether that's the wallet functionality or some add-on. We don't really know. Some of that functionality will be to protect me from doing stupid stuff. Some of it will be to keep track of what I'm doing, for example, GDPR consents, and then can retract them, etc. We also touched on hardware-less wallets. I guess the first thing that comes to mind with everybody when we say wallet is, we have this smartphone. Well, not everybody is privileged. We need to have a way to give wallets to people that can't afford and for other reasons don't have a smartphone. Meaning you have a kiosk, you walk up, it recognizes you by some magic means that we talked about in deepfake, for example, and then you get access to your wallet. And you also want to access your wallet from, well, multiple devices, even your car and your phone and stuff like that. And we touched briefly also on company wallets. So you want to have a wallet for your company because as a company you also want to share information. I guess that was a high-level summary. Any comment from you, Eric? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, well done. Now, another problem that I assume you solved, because there was a lot of solution architecture going on there, is in, no smartphone. Can we help people without a smartphone? Marco, where are you?
Yes, I think we solved it, sort of. First of all, we defined what the problem was, and eventually it was about roughly in the Netherlands 2.5 million people, for some reason or another, do not have access to digital wallets, digital or smartphones and stuff like that, but they still need access to the digital world, to all the nice wallets and credentials that we have. So 2.5 million people on a population of 18 is substantial. I posed the question from a public transport perspective, but there's a number of other transactions people have to engage in where they need access to some sort of wallet. Now, in the first presentation this morning, we heard from the European Commission that one of the initiatives is to give out identity credentials for free. So we assumed that for these people you could get some sort of card with your credentials, and we said you need a second factor on that in the form of biometrics. We thought of simple things like fingerprint. And with that, we should be able to find solutions where people could, and we had a number of nice terms for it. Just trying to find friend onboarding or on behalf of onboarding. So I don't have a smartphone, but I've been issued with a digital credential in the form of a card, and I can use somebody else's smartphone or a kiosk. I just heard somebody say, walk up to the kiosk, identify myself with the credentials I've been given by the government, and with that I still have access to a digital wallet or digital services, and that could be through this kiosk or through the apps of somebody else. Eventually, it is all about trust, making sure that I'm trusted, but I've been given this credential by my government, so let's assume that has been verified somewhere. But also, the person that helps me should be trusted, as well as the parties I engage with, because I can be, and I am, very trustworthy, but if I'm dealing with a dodgy company, the transaction still is maybe not beneficial to all concerned. Let me see, what else did we talk about? One of the things we are missing is all these nice parties that are here. We haven't seen this solution yet, so we thought of founding our own company, but that was short of time. Have I missed anything? No? Have I missed anything? Okay. That was it.
Well, thank you. I love the fact you solved it, sort of. Okay, so moving on. Deepfake identity frauds. Do we need to act upon it now, Alexander? And one of the things that fascinated me that I picked up from your session is your statement actually saying there's an unknown of fakes we detect. So we're not sure how much fraud or fake there's going on. So should we act?
Well, on the question, should we detect deepfakes or should we act now, we quite quickly came to the consensus, yes, sounds important, we should. But then the real question was posed, how do we detect deepfakes? Oh no, wrong one. There it is. Now, how can we know a vendor can say we can detect deepfakes? There are a lot of vendors out there saying we have 95% accuracy on deepfake detection. I'm one of those vendors, actually. But there's no way for anyone to, know if this is true. There's no way to test it. A possible solution we saw is that there would be a standardized data set of deepfakes and real images. So a vendor could say, we score this % of accuracy on this data set. However, I cannot create that data set because I'm one of the vendors. This data set would have to be updated because deepfake technology is evolving really, really fast. Perhaps the biggest conclusion we draw is that for the moment, you should not verify someone using a single liveness check, because that's very deepfake sensitive. Thank you.
Okay. Now, in what part of decentralized identity is actually decentralized, there was a really nice conclusion at some point where someone said, well, bear in mind that we, all end users, however we create this, will have the same rights as criminals. So we can't just cater separately for, you can't say, this is for the users and this is for the criminals, which touches upon your deepfakes. Bob, can I ask you to, because you did the drawing on this, I don't know where it went. Oh, it's again John Eric. Okay, you outsourced it nicely, because I saw you doing the drawing. And they came up with a matrix.
Okay, so we started talking about decentralized, and we started looking at which entities are involved. And we have the issuing party, we need revocation, we have access recovery, account recovery, validation. There are trust lists. We have, the wallet provider. We have the identity pimps, as they put it. The brokers. We have relying party. The regulators, the auditors. A lot of parties are involved. And then Bob came up with this really nice illustration where, I know you can't really see it, but we have public-private access at the bottom. So private here, public here. And then we have decentralized and centralized. And then we try to place these different actors in this illustration. So for example, the regulators are definitely public and they are centralized. No doubt about that. Auditors, they are also centralized, but can be public or private. We looked at some others. If you look at the issuers and revocators, well, they will need to be in the centralized, but they can be all over the space here. We need to have some centralization in revocation. Brokers are typically private and can be, maybe more to the decentralized side. Then we started discussing the wallets, which is the hard part here, and we ended up pretty much with a very long line like this, from centralized wallets, typically the payment wallets are centralized, all the way down to the decentralized, that Irmanschluss and, can't read this one, or mobile wallet, so decentralized. So these can be, down in this, and that also is account recovery. So at least in my mind, it helped a lot trying to place this in a map like that, looking at the entities, trying to place them like this. And some more details. And then, of course, I was attributed with a statement, which is the last one here. Really nice drawing here, even signed it. Are we advocating principles? Do we want to have the pure SSI model where everything is private or anonymous? Or are we catering for criminals? Because if I want full anonymity, I give that to all criminals as well. And that's, in the physical worlds, we have a legal system that if somebody is suspected of something, you can get a judge to approve surveillance of that person to, uncover criminal activities. If we, follow the principles, are we then helping the criminals? It's a good question. Right. That's it.
Thank you. Now, the last one, Alexander, was, I think, the most popular one, and even drove out some of the other topics. It's about the business case and who's going to pay for this. And they talked a lot, at least when I was there, they talked about selling credentials or selling data. And I think one of the quotes from Katrina here was, you don't pay for data, but you can pay for trust. And that's an interesting one. So Alexander, please take it away.
Thank you very much. Most difficult case last. Well, we did not solve it. We had some very nice discussion and we had some very nice framing. So that actually we went away with a frame, a business case about earning money. Should it be about earning money or should it be about covering your costs? That's the last thing we came away with, which needs reconsideration. And of course you can think about selling your credentials, but it's not really selling your credentials, it's about offering services. But we do have a problem here, because if we introduce a new system, a decentralized system to provide trust to different parties, the system needs to be funded. It has costs and it needs to be funded. And we found several vectors where you can ask for a small benefit to cover your cost. Although the European Union states in extension it should be, in essence, it should be free of charge. But in essence, it should be free of charge is merely the basic function of a wallet. So that's identification and authentication. I haven't read up on the IDnexT2 third revision of Czech Republic. On subtopics I have, but I haven't read anything about it that it should be completely free. So we propose that around a wallet, in essence, the basic functionality, it could be free, but for added functionality, it's a bit of a freemium model. You pay for keeping your data. You pay for safeguarding the trust you own in your wallet. But of course, it's not only about wallets. You have such a means, a wallet, for covering transaction of trust in a digital world. So it's about transactions between two parties. They can be verifier and holder equally alike. So you exchange data here. And the most traditional way of thinking is, well, if somebody needs my data, I have to pay for it. But we think, oh, why not reverse it? Why not reverse it? If you want to have my data, you will pay me because you will have the benefits. And then, of course, the frame, then you're selling your data comes in, and that's a very dangerous frame, but a very good frame to take into account. And we haven't solved it. We also need, because if you have a premium for your data, you might even give wrong incentives. You might even let people sell their data for a piece of cake. Yeah, thank you. Which you, of course, you're completely autonomous, so you're allowed to do to some part of the extent of the law. This could be a model. Another part of this transaction is that just like now, you have to pay for the service of getting your credentials. You have to pay for your getting a driver's license. You have to pay for getting a passport. So you invest in trust from an issuer, and you get small refunds of your pre-investments there. Could be a model with lots of danger there as well. So there's another model as well, which, well, it's the root of all evil for some people in the self-sovereign identity community, and is have the verifier pay the issuer. So if you want to verify my identity, why not pay to the source of my identity? And of course, in the heart of self-sovereign identity, that cannot be the case, because then the issuer will know you know my identity. But there are other schemas I'm not fully familiar with about double bind payments, etc., that can also cater criminals. So there is all kinds of difficult angles here. But to come to a conclusion, we should not talk about a business case, but we should talk about covering costs. And then we should think about who pays for the wallet. If it should be free, can there be a freemium model in it? And you should look at the different transactions there, and we should find schemas there how to cater to cover the cost of these transactions. And we have to elaborate further.
Well, I'm amazed what you came up with in under an hour. And we'll see a lot more research on that from people spending more time and more resources on it. But thank you all. That was the last session. At 5 o'clock, the central program will start again in the main hall. And thank you for all your efforts and inputs.